How you doing? This is Chris with Chris's Comments. Excuse me. It's Sunday, April 18th. Just a little recap on the migrant situation here in San Antonio. We've got a second wave of kids coming over. These are males, 13 to 17. And they're being sent over to Lackland Air Force Base in an area where they're going to be quarantined and set over to one side. According to reports, this is just a tiny spot on the base. It's hosting about 300 kids there, which is just a little fraction of the amount that can be taken care of if they were still sending them over to the Freeman Coliseum. The reason for this is because of the current scandal when my governor Greg Abbott came down here, did a tour, and then accused everybody of raping children, and said that the Border Patrol should be receiving total Border Patrol should receive total control over the situation, and the Biden administration sanctuary should be shut down. Now, to recap on that, we've hosted migrants before, from Texas all the way to California, the southwestern states. And from the years 2014 to 2018, a total of 4,500 cases were developed of sexual assault, harassment, and rape, all done by the adult faculty staff members who were in charge of looking after them. Okay? This was as far back as Obama's watch to Trump's watch, and Greg Abbott was governor throughout both of those times. Okay? The one time he actually pays attention to any of this stuff, he throws out rape accusations and says that everything should be put back under Border Patrol control. The very same department where those cases were developed. And for the record, only 178, I think 178 or 87 cases was the crime resolved. Everything else was just discarded. And I'm not even sure it was resolved. Nobody went to jail. Otherwise, this would have been huge throughout the news. This would have made huge public news if any of them had actually gone to jail. So here we are with a scandal being thrown out there by Governor Greg Abbott. All he had to do was just throw an accusation, and it thwarted everything. Now we got a second wave of kids going over to Lackland Air Force Base, which I personally think that they all should be there, because at least in an Air Force hangar surrounded by fenced 12-foot barbed wire fencing and bodyguards, well, not bodyguards but guards, it was the same type of atmo that was done for, if y'all remember, a Star Trek actor named the one who played Sulu, George Takei. Through his testimony in the 1960s, he was actually placed into an encampment where that kind of security that was supposed to keep them in also at the same time kept them safe. Yeah, they knew they were prisoners, but they were safe. And that's, in my opinion, it should have been done that way a long time ago. But here we got it right now, where we got a coliseum that can hold a lot more than the current 300 that's being sent to Lackland. And the only reason why they're even being sent to Lackland is because of that stupid scandal that my own governor is responsible for. And for the record, nothing has come up out of the investigation. There were no crimes. In fact, if you recall through one of my previous testimonies, one of my previous comment shows, the kids are testifying as opposed to when Trump was in charge, as opposed to when Obama was in charge. The kids in this current administration are testifying that they are being treated fine. That they're being treated fine, and that they're being fed well, and that they're being kept warm, and that they're being kept safe. And if you look at those photos and videotapes of those kids that are being held in their encampment, they're not behind cages. Their cells are these frames with plastic sheets that you can see through. And yeah, they're lying on the floor, but they're lying on the floor in blankets instead of in blankets and on sleeping bags, instead of on a hard floor with just a thin aluminum sheet, thermal sheet. And that's it. That's a huge difference between the two. That's a huge difference between the two. They're being taken care of now. As opposed to the two previous administrations where they were literally locked up like dogs in cages. So when you get something like this, you know, by all means, you got an administration that's finally doing the right thing. Well, forget what Governor Greg Abbott said. Did I say Governor Greg? Yeah. Forget what Greg Abbott says. Greg Abbott doesn't know squat. Forget what Ted Cruz says. Ted Cruz, he's too busy riding around the Rio Grande on a boat, walking around in tall leaves, thinking that, you know, he's in a combative zone. He's in a neutral zone. He thinks he's on the equivalent of the Gaza Strip or something. Man, to hell with that guy. And to hell with every single one of these politicians that claim this is a crisis and all this stuff. Especially that. Because they're not doing anything about it. They just want the border closed. And that's not solving anything. We already closed the border. And look what happened. A loophole was found. A break between the walls. And teams of people, scores of people, were running to the other side. They were running through. There was a reporter standing there with them running behind him, crossing a low water crossing. Families, one right after another. So this whole biswax, well, don't do anything, just shut down the border. That's not going to do anything. And besides, I think it was Ted Cruz himself that showed a video of, that revealed the video of people leaning their kids, climbing the wall, carrying their kids over the wall, and dropping them, giving the 1, 2, 3, here you go, and dropping them down onto the ground and then taking off. You know, how is this wall supposed to be stopping the illegal migrations? You got them throwing their own kids over the wall. And to top it all off, they're throwing them over the walls that aren't already tilted, bent, dropped, if not completely collapsed on the ground, you know, not being much of a wall, regardless of the fact that it might be 10 feet higher. It might be 10 feet taller. So what? So what? It's not stopping them. Sorry, I had to readjust I could hear the metal part of the ponytail holder scraping the threading there of my headrest. So, just to update, we got a bunch of politicians that are anti-migrants claiming that a wall that's already proven to be a complete failure, saying that this has to stop while it's still going. The migrants are finally being cared for. They're being organized. They're being quarantined. If they're infected, they're being placed over to one side. If they have people that they can get in touch with, family members that they can get in touch with here in the States. And they're being deported if they don't have anything with them to prove that they're citizens of their country and that they're here seeking asylum and that they can actually make a connection here in the States and all this good stuff. I mean, it's finally being run the way it's supposed to be run. And it's getting through this BS scandal that's going on. Now, anybody out there who knows me, and I've already testified to this to one of my previous comments, I'll say it again in this comment right here. When it comes to political leaders, it's all about the money. Religion is the tool. Get that? It's all about the money. Religion is the tool. Okay? Everybody that wants that wall to go back is just somebody that's skimming off the top. It's already been proven that not all of the fundings that went to the wall went to the wall. There was tons of politicians that were pocketing loose cash. There was construction companies that was pocketing loose cash. It was skeleton crews making these dumbass walls, these BS walls that weren't even standing up. They were collapsing no more than a year later. Not even a full year went by and they started to collapse, which is just 100% proof that the only reason why negative people out there are claiming that we need the wall is to make everybody believe that they're safer while pocketing more cash. They're going to make you believe. That's where the religious part comes in, or belief is the tool. Belief is the tool. It's just that obvious. So what about the Biden administration? Where's that money and belief part comes in? Okay. Money goes to setting up these infrastructures and these organized whatever and all this other stuff. Now, if Biden isn't collecting off the top, if he's not skimming off the top already, you know full well he's going to be skimming off the top come tax time once these migrants finally get a job or get to the families or whatever who are already working. You know, he's going to get more subsidies. He's going to get more charitable donations for his good causes because we believe that he's doing all of this just for the good cause. Now, it is a good cause. These migrants that are being run out of their own country are receiving help. That's good. But to think that he's not getting anything out of it just because he's Cool Joe or Joe Cool or whatever, you know, or that he's being hoodwinked by migrants because he's Sleepy Joe. Migrants are getting a free ride and all this other crap that so many accusers are claiming that the migrants are. You know, to think that the woolly is being pulled over his head or that he's just delusioning himself is just down. Man, that's being gullibility. You can't really call him that if you actually believe that. He's the oldest living president, but he ain't no fool. Who in the hell would be? Who in the hell would be? If he were the president. If you were the president of the United States, you could be 99. You can be 110. You know? To think that you're going to be able to miss out on anything, any side deals or any future investments because of how old you are, you know? I bet some of you would be chuckling right now once you hear this. I know I'd be. Shoot. It's all about the money. Belief is the tool. Religion, belief. It's all about the money. Religion is the tool. So yeah, we got some guys. And now that some of them are here on Lackland Air Force Base, they're on a military base. Well, obviously, those that are running and administering this can go to Congress and say, look, we're protecting the country. We're now saving migrants as well. You know, I think we earned our, tax-paying, whatever the taxpayers are paying. I think we've earned a bigger cut and more of a cut for this. You know, and despite and that's aside from the fact, like, to prove that from the war aspect, Trump himself sold military-grade combative weaponry, missiles, planes, tanks. And that money from the Middle East, I won't mention the country because that's not important right now. It could be in any country. This was a Middle Eastern country that bought all our tanks and guns and weapons and missiles. That big amount of money came back, and then because it looks good, a lot of it went to the military. But if you remember, Trump wanted to cut military spending and have it used on the wall. The very same project that he was skimming off of, he and his people and the and the construction crews, you know. In other words, Trump made you believe you were being safe, made you believe international relations were good for a bunch of money that he wanted to route and reroute and pocket, and just pocket. He and everybody that was on his side. But why? Because it's all about the money. Belief is the tool. You know, and everybody out there that thinks it's bull crap. I mean, dude, you really just play into what I'm saying. You really just, proving me correct. And everybody who thinks that I might be wrong and I don't know what I'm talking about, I'm believing somebody's BS. Well, you're the one that really can't see where the money's going. So who are you to really call gullible? If you really can't see that, you really aren't anybody to tell me I don't know what I'm talking about. So yeah, I mean it's just BS. But back to the current situation with the migrant children that are being rescued right now. Yeah, to think that Biden isn't scoring any cash out of this is just, it's just gullibility. You think he's out to molest the 17-year-old, to have sex with some 17-year-old Latino? Well, you can assume that, but common sense says that he's actually out for the cash. It costs a lot of money to set that crap up. And if he's not banking on it now, he will be later. You honestly can't see that. You're really nobody to tell me that I don't know what I'm talking about. So that's the spiel right there of what's going on here in San Antonio, Texas. For those of you who aren't looking this way because of the stuff that's going on, big props go to everybody that's trying to find justice for the victims that got shot, whether it be by cops or by criminals. There was a hate crime that committed, one that I was talking about in Indianapolis. It finally came out. A bunch of Sikhs were being shot at by this white kid. I'm going to move to a more shadier area, which is bizarre given that Sikhs are not Taliban. Sikhs are not Sikhs or sheiks. I don't know if I'm saying it correct. I think it's Sikh. Sheiks are an entirely different country, despite the fact that they're all coming from the Middle East. But that's beside the point. That's like trying to say the cartels. All these MS-13 cartels. Well, no, MS-13 is a gang, not a cartel. MS-13 is a gang in El Salvador, or originating out of El Salvador. It's not a family-oriented, organized crime function from Mexico. Okay, two difference. However, Sikhs are not criminal organizations either. Are there people that commit crimes that are Sikhs? I'm sure there are. Nobody's perfect. No organization or people is perfect. But Sikh, Muslim, Mohammed's, Taliban, Al-Qaeda, Al-Qaeda, and they're all different factions and different organizations and different structures that may believe in God, the one God, but at the same time they believe it in their own way. To get them confused, with a Sikh, with a Taliban is like getting confused with a Baptist and a Catholic. We all believe in Jesus, But as we've seen before, the Middle Easterners even came over and start with 9/11. There are incidences where, you know, Catholics and Protestants in the UK were bombing each other. You know, hell, down here in the South, there's a difference between Southern Baptist and regular Baptists. You know, it's the same thing as it's sort of like also Lutherans and Catholics. You know, they both come from the Italian-styled form of belief, with the same seances and same rituals, if I can get away with saying that. How about Christian practices? Okay, they still come up with the same Christian practices, but they're doing it under their own denomination. And the same thing applies now back to this analogy used back into the Indianapolis one. Sikhs believe in Allah. They believe in God, Allah or Muhammad. Shucks, I can't remember. But they believe it in their way, in their fashion. Sikhs are believing in God in their way, differently from the Taliban, who are differently from those from Iran, those that follow through their prophet. Oh gosh, what was his name? The Ayatollah. The Sikhs are different, and this guy, he might have done his studying, he might not have cared, but you know, he's driven into this form of hate that a lot of people are doing as well, and causing a little bit of problems on their own. But to the update on that, which leads me to people just, you gotta abolish this hate. You gotta try to find a way to knock it down, because of the simple fact that those Sikhs were Middle Eastern, yeah, but they weren't the ones responsible for 9/11, and the migrants that are in captivity right now, that are in custody right now, they're nowhere near the same as cartel or even MS-13. There's a huge difference between the two. And technically, we can see this. This is true. So stay alert. I got a funny feeling that even though so far the only shooting that's been taking place was at a bar in, I want to say Houston, but I'm not really sure. No, it was in Florida, somewhere in Florida, where 3 wound up dead. No, it was in Wisconsin. Oh my God. I got to start writing everything down so I know know my current events. 3 at a bar in Wisconsin was shot, and the gunman's still on the loose. So who knows what his motives were. Also, the gunman here in San Antonio that shot up, that tried killing people at an airport but got shot down by the FAA cop. It turns out he's got a little bit of a list of crimes that he's done before leading up to this. I personally think he was just whacked out on too many drugs, seeing as how he was a drug dealer, and just went ape. Excuse me. He just went bat crap. And there was one more guy that I was gonna. Oh yeah, the Chicago cop that shot the teenage boy. Now, the video shows the boy running to a side of a fence and tossing the weapon that was visible in his hand just a couple of seconds before, and then quickly whipping around to show 2 hands with nothing in them. And the defense of the cop is trying to make it say that it was like an 1/8 of a second in which this took place. True. But we still rely on that cop to know the difference and to be able to know when to shoot and when not to. And the video itself, they're trying to say, well, the video itself is proof that you can't do anything in an eighth of a second. You know, I personally think that that's not excusable. And you can all hate me for that all you want. You can, whatever. But watching the video in real time shows that he had 100% opportunity to not pull the trigger, and 100% opportunity to, you know, I don't know, pin him up against that fence or throw him down to the ground. You know, this kid, to top it all off, was under suspect of shooting into a crowd before the chase and before he got shot. He and the 21-year-old that he was hanging out with. This means they were this close to setting an example to anybody out there that thinks it's cool to be shooting a gun, to apprehend him and apprehend both of them. You know, and set an example by putting them behind bars and what have you. You know, they had a perfect example to make sure that, you know, you do something like this, you're going to pay a price. And in this case, it wound up demonizing the cops. So much that even I think that cop should be punished. You know, I don't think all cops are bastards. I'm not ACAB. You know, but I do recognize good cops. Like the one here in San Antonio that took out a gunman before he could actually take out anybody else. And the bad cop that shot that kid. You know, there's a difference between the two. So that's my time right now. I'm just under a minute. I gotta go. You know, y'all make your own claims. If you gotta post something, please stay within the community guidelines. I'm tired of looking at faded out comments that I can't read because the community guideline says you're breaking the rules. You know, I'm tired of looking at deleted comment on my comment section. Stay within the community guidelines, please. Thank you. This is Chris with Chris's Comments. Out.